Welcome back to TaraChessAcademy. Today we're going to discuss the importance of controlling squares and creating attacking plans.
Hi everyone. Yeah, for today we prepared interesting positions for you, but first we would like to continue the topic from the previous video about using the power of a passed pawn. Yeah, so if you watch the videos that we made last week, you should find something similar with previous end games in this position. So yeah, in this position we play for black, and we have to find the way how black creates a passed pawn and how this pawn promotes. Okay, so Tara, what ideas do you have?
The pawn on b4, it's not a passed pawn because the white pawns are stopping it. So we're trying to find a way to play against white's plans. So we want to find a way to break through and create a passed pawn.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe we can try to capture. Yeah, so what is my plan? Of course, if white takes, I play bishop takes c3. Yeah, and actually we don't get an extra pawn. Yeah, we just get it back. But the problem is that after before takes c3, white has an intermediate move. It's knight takes f6. Yeah, and of course this endgame looks much better for white. So that's why we don't capture the pawn with the pawn. So it should be something else, I guess.
Sometimes to make pawn breakthroughs, we might need to make a small sacrifice in order to get a winning position. So black wants to find a way to make a sacrifice to get their pawns free and moving.
Mm-hmm. So probably we can start with bishop takes c3 in this position. I don't think that white can ignore this move, so pawn captures. So what happens then?
Here we have two options to capture the pawn or advance to b3. If we capture the pawn, our black pawn on c3 would be separated and isolated. So white could start attacking the pawn.
Yeah,
And it
it's
would make
just
it
a
a
typical
weakness.
active position for the rook. Yeah, if you want to stop the pawn, usually your rook should stay behind the pawn. Yeah. So, and of course, white stops the pawn without any problems. And in this position, you see that white has an extra knight. So, yeah, that's why we shouldn't capture. Instead of this, we just move the pawn to b3. So white still should try to stop it, yeah, and put the rook to b6. But what happens in this position, Tara?
The difference here is that the black rook can come to b4
Mm-hmm.
and block the white rook.
Yeah, black just plays rook b4, so I think that white captures. What happens then?
Here is a very important moment because if we capture the white pawn or move our pawn to b2, white will win the game.
Yeah, after b2, it's possible to open this file, yeah, and the rook captures the pawn. So that's why b2 would be a mistake. So how could we like close the file? Yeah, we shouldn't let white open it.
We should close the file by advancing our pawn to a4.
Of course. Okay, probably white tries to get to the first rank with the idea to stop the pawns. What would you do, Tara?
The white rook that's what they try to do, but we can push our pawn to b2.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now we can't promote because the white rook is on the first rank. So I would move the other pawn to a3.
Okay, for instance, knight is 3.
And now we advance the pawn to a2.
Mm-hmm. And knight c2 still doesn't help. Yeah.
Here we have to be really careful about which pawn to promote because if we play a1, there's 2 attackers, but only 1 defender.
Yeah,
So white could stop it.
of course. And white wins, so we shouldn't move a pawn.
That's why we should move the B pawn.
So takes, yeah, and of course position is absolutely win for black. Okay, so it's the only end games that we would like to discuss today, and let's go to the next position. So in this position, you will see how it's important to control some squares, especially if there are weak squares in position of your opponent, yeah? And first, let's probably evaluate the position. Maybe it's better for white, maybe it's better for black, yeah? So if you see that no one has any extra material, yeah, you can have a look at the pawn structure. Yeah, it's one of the elements that can help you to understand who has an advantage. And also, of course, it's an important moment to have a look at the position of the king. Yeah, so it looks like the black king position of the black king is a little bit open. Yeah, and you see that white pieces are mostly at the king side. Yeah, queen also can get to the king side if it will be needed. So probably in this position, white has all chances to start an attack at the king, yeah, and move some of the pieces closer. As we discussed many times, your candidate moves should start with checks or captures first, yeah? So I don't think that queen takes h7 works in this position, yeah? So like black captures the queen and it doesn't make any sense. Probably knight takes d5 just gonna help black to, yeah, so it's good for black to open this file and then try to pin the queen with the king or just to attack the king. So probably in this position, we shouldn't start with check or with capture, but we still have a good attacking move in this position. So Tara, please, what ideas do you have?
We want to start an attacking plan, which means if we get our pieces closer to the black king, it will be easier for us to create an attack. So we should try to get the knight or the bishop closer. But let's think which one will be able to do that.
Okay, so maybe the white knight. I don't think that we have to move it to h4 or to g5. Yeah, especially if we move it to g5, we just block the file for the rook, yeah? So what else could we do in this position? Where else can we move the knight?
We could move the knight to e5 to control f7.
Okay, knight e5. Yeah, so we want to get to f7 and check the king. So what happens if the knight would be just captured?
If the knight gets captured, white makes checkmate in a few moves if the bishop captures the pawn.
So you see we open the file for the rook, and after bishop f6, what happens? Yeah, just bishop takes f6, right? Okay, well done. So it's kind of like poisoned knight. Yeah, it's not good to capture it. But I don't see how black could protect f7. So, okay, for instance, what if I just ignore this move? Okay, I don't capture the knight, I just play rook c8. So my plan is to pin your knight. So what happens?
Here, white also has to act fast because if white wastes time by playing another move like rook g2, black will move the pawn to b4 and create serious problems for white, and that wouldn't be good. So white has to act fast, and that's why they should move the knight to f7.
With check, yeah? Okay, I think it's not so important for us where exactly the king moves to g8 or to g7. So, okay, let's discuss king g8 in this position.
If the king goes to g8, the rook and black king are in the same file, so we can make a discovered attack to win the queen if we move our bishop to c7.
Yeah, so we can just play bishop c7, attack the queen, yeah, and So we just get an extra material. Okay, well done. It's a very nice plan, and you see that after knight e5, it's not possible to protect f7, and I don't see where the queen could escape. So yeah, all squares that queen has are dark squares, and even if something like this happens, yeah, our dark square bishop still can attack the queen. Okay, but what happens if black just tries to block this file for the rook? So for instance, black plays knight g6. Is it a good idea?
Here they're trying to stop our plan by blocking the G file. And if we capture the black knight, our attack is gone. Even if we get the queen close to the king, our attack is still gone. So white has to try something else, and that is to just capture the bishop.
Yeah, so just knight takes d7 and so white has an extra piece in this position. But of course, white still should be careful. Yeah, black probably would try to attack the queen side. But yeah, an extra knight is always good. Yeah, so that's why knight e5 is a nice example. So you try to get to a weak square, yeah, and to attack your opponent. So probably we can go to the next position. Okay, yeah, so you see that, of course, white has some advantage. White has an extra bishop, and I suppose that probably even playing bishop takes a7 should be enough, yeah, to win the game. But it takes some time, yeah, and of course, black shouldn't give up. So that's why let's look for some other plans. Yeah, and again, maybe that fact that the white queen is at the 7th rank could help us. So let's think if it's possible for white to make some problems for the black king. So Tara, please.
While the white queen on the 7th rank is very powerful, it's not enough to checkmate the king because it can't go to c7 and checkmate because the king would capture. So white needs some more pieces in the attack. They can't just checkmate with the queen. So let's try to do something with the bishop. Let's find a way for the bishop to be a helper to the queen.
Okay, so what can we do? Try to attack c7, bishop b6, bishop d6. Yeah, but both of these moves don't look good just because black can capture the bishop. So should we still think about these moves?
We should still think about them because even if moves seem silly, sometimes if we calculate them, we can get a better understanding, and sometimes it might actually work. So
Okay.
that's why we always have to calculate. First, let's try bishop d6.
So you won't just mate the king, so I think black can just capture.
And now the problem is that bishop d6 is just a one-step plan. White doesn't have anything after. They
I
can't
agree.
do checkmate.
Okay, so should be something else.
Let's try the other way and to go to b6.
To b6. This move actually looks even worse, yeah, because there are two pawns that can capture the bishop. But also good for us that I don't see that the queen or the rook can protect c7. Okay, so for instance, one of the pawns captures. So what happens then?
Then I capture back with my pawn.
So a5 takes b6. Okay, so you still want to mate the king. Probably black has to capture the pawn again.
They had to, or else we make a checkmate. And even if they capture, it doesn't stop the checkmate. We can make another checkmate if we move a rook to a8.
Yeah, so yeah, it looks like ruler's mate. Okay, and you can check, yeah, that no matter which pawn captures, yeah, so c7 or a7, yeah, black still is in trouble because the file is open for the rook, yeah, and black can't protect the king from both of these checkmates, yeah. Okay, but maybe instead of trying to capture the bishop, the black king also can escape. So what should we do after king b8?
After the king goes, let's try to look for checks. The three checks are bishop a7, bishop c7, or queen c7.
Maybe it's better to move the queen to the king
Yeah.
because this piece is stronger. So, okay, let's think what happens after king a8.
After the king goes, white has a really strong move. It's not with a check, but it's a quiet move that threatens a lot of things.
Yeah, so probably white has to use a rook in attack, and for this we have to open the file. So yeah, let's start with a6. So
If the pawn on b7 captures, then the queen captures the pawn on a7 and makes a checkmate.
yeah, but at the same time we want to capture on b7 and make a checkmate for the king. So what if black tries to protect the king like this?
Then we can still capture the pawn on b7 because
with a pawn, not with a queen, probably.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
The
So
rook has to capture,
I agree.
and then you move your rook to a7.
Yeah, so yeah, the queen still helps. Yeah, it looks a little bit like X-ray. Yeah. So rook takes, queen takes, yeah, and that's all. Checkmate. So yeah, sometimes you have to think even about moves like this. Yeah, bishop b6 when so many pieces of your opponent can capture, but it still could work. Yeah, so we want to attack c7. So very nice puzzle. Let's go to the last one for today. Yeah. Oh, this one is nice. So we still play white. Yeah, it looks like black has how many? Let me count. 3 extra pawns in this position. Yeah. So the bishop is strong. Maybe black has a plan to attack the king. Yeah. But right now, I think the last move that black made was queen e7. Yeah. So queen is defended by the bishop. And let's think if in this position white has any chance to make problems for the king. So should we discuss queen takes e7 first? Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happens if we trade queens? So do we have enough pieces to attack the king?
I think without the queen, it makes it a lot harder because if we try to move our knight to h5 with threats of rook g7, which will be a double attack to the king and the bishop.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so it's not queen takes e7. Let's discuss another plans. So what else could we do?
We can't capture the queen. There's no other checks. So it's just like the previous ones where we get more attackers. So now let's try knight h5, but we'll do it on the first move.
Knight h5. It looks like you want to get to f6. Yeah, I think these squares look a little bit weak. Yeah, squares near the king. Okay, so, but it looks like it was just a blunder and black captures the queen, right?
Black, they thought now I can win a queen, but they forgot to calculate of white's plans, and white can make checkmate in 2 moves by moving the knight to f6, and then after the king moves, we move our rook to g8.
Yeah, so it wasn't a good plan to capture the queen, right? So let's go back. Yeah, but now you understand how powerful the knight could be if it gets to f6. Okay, so what if black just ignores this plan and I don't know, so plays rook takes e3? What happens? Does it help?
It doesn't help because white can still move the knight to f6. The queen is pinned, that's why they can't capture, and it's the same checkmate.
So yeah, king h8, rook g8 is still a checkmate. Okay. So what else can I try? I don't know. If I play bishop c3 with the idea to protect f6, is it a good idea?
You tried to protect something, but you lost the defense of another piece.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can capture the queen.
Yeah, so the queen is undefended, and after queen takes e7, yeah, I think that we're still gonna mate the king very soon in this position. Okay, so the problem is that the knight gets to f6 with check. I mean, like the problem for black. So probably the king can try to get to h8 in this position.
Then now we have to look for the checks because knight f6 doesn't work. The queen is out of the pin. So the three checks that I see are queen b8, queen c8, or queen e5. If we move our queen to the 8th rank, then the black queen could block.
Yeah, the bishop will defend it. So after queen f8, yeah, maybe so it's much easier for black to avoid problems. So we should try something else.
So let's look at the other check, which is queen e5.
Okay, queen f5, yeah. So the king can't escape to g8 or g7. Okay, so what happens after king h7?
Here it looks really tempting to give lots of checks, but we still have to calculate because here there's so many things, knight f6, rook g7, queen g7. So first let's look at rook g7.
Okay, so of course it's not good to capture, yeah, because then it's just mate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what if the king moves to h8? What happens now?
Then the rook captures the queen. It's a discovered check.
Yeah, and after king g8?
Then queen g7.
Yeah, so this is what happens when you control the squares, yeah, especially if there are some weak squares in position of your opponent. Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video to others. I'll see you on my next video. Bye!
Bye!